हाँ भारत,
हमें 2 फोटो सिलेक्ट करके उसमें अपलोड कर दिया।
भेजो भेजो, ठीक है
मैंने व्हाट्सएप कर दिया।
ठीक है।
तो लिंक कर देना।
हाँ मंजूर जी मिल रहा है, करो ना। नहीं इतना टाइम नहीं है, जल्दी करो बस ये वाला तो मैं
जो मेरे वाले टाइम पे होगा ना लाइव से, नहीं तो होगा तेरे वाले। हाँ दो एक साथ left one should be a little in front. Fine. हाँ, straight line. हाँ वही
पिक्चर्स उठाओ जल्दी।
अभी साइड पूरा इसका
अमन तू भी ले और थोड़ा देख लेना। ले लिया और ठीक है। उसने देख लिया।
This was a little bit side. ये वाला साइड है थोड़ा. This is side.
एयरपोर्ट दिख नहीं रहा वैसे वो क्रॉप हो जाएगा।
ये तो पता भी नहीं
हाँ
चला.
ठीक है सही ना। हाँ इसको बोलो पानी अमन ले जल्दी। अंकिता अंकित क्या हो कितना है एक से ले सिर्फ फटाफट लेके आओ यार उसको कॉल करो भरत को ये तुम बात ले आओ
चार्जर ले
चार्जर लेके आओ उसको बोलो देगा कॉल करा इसमें कितना बैटरी है मैं हो गया पिक्चर्स ले लिया बंद कर
देखते ना इट वाज गुड हां
और वाले नेट
मुझे पता और चला इसलिए मैं बता
मैंने और आप लगा रहे हो तुम देखोगे
हाँ ठीक है उसको और ज़्यादा काम
और उसका काम है नहीं और
हाँ उसको लगा
एक बार दिखाना अपनी अलॉटमेंट राय में गुवाहाटी आना
मेरे को नहीं जाना
मैं
ठीक है क्या है तेरा
मार दूँ तेरे को
मास्टर शीट
नहीं शायद अलॉटमेंट
ये नहीं है ना आपका शीट ये पुराने वाला है भाई इस साल वाला इसमें नहीं है
नहीं पुराना
इसमें भी तो नहीं है ना नाइस बहुत अच्छा मेंटेन कर
जहाँ के
ओह मैं तो जैसे घूमने गया था मैं घूमने गया था ना वहाँ पे
हाँ यस आई
हाँ डन है ना वो कुछ भी कर दिया
मैं जब निकलूंगी तो उससे कॉल
हाँ वो बता तब मैं इधर रहेगा मैं जा रहा हूँ बाकी काम और
हाँ करा ले जल्दी है
Yeah,
Very
you have to.
shabby.
right? Yes, sir. I will backstage. Yes, sir. I will backstage. Yeah, it was very nice. Yeah, I was seeing.
Thank you. Ada tuh Cina makan hoi kue sudah. Mereka ini cabut.
I got a message that he called earlier. Then I came to sorry and he said something. Then that's that because he has come to campus. He has not met the mail, so I wanted to see it. ठीक है
Distinguished speakers, esteemed faculty members, guests of honor, and my fellow peers in the audience. It is my single greatest honor to introduce a speaker who, having studied in the same classrooms as us and participated in the same committees, has gone on to become the diamond we all aspire to be, Mr. Pravin Srinivasan. Hailing from Paris 1999, his 25-year-long career has been nothing but an upward trajectory, going from humble beginnings to the stratospheric heights he now inhabits. Following his graduation, he laid a solid foundation in business development and consultancy, broadening his expertise at Wipro and BES in the first 6 years of his career. However, his real breakthrough came subsequently with his initial tenure at Cisco, a 12-year-long stint that saw him ascend from an account manager to networking director for all of India and SAARC. But the saga didn't end there. In 2017, he sought to expand his horizons with Microsoft, where he served as co-directional roles over 6 years, effectively taking the helm of a AAA firm in India's IT revolution. And in August 2023, he completed his triumphant return to Cisco, now gracing the role of country sales leader. To our professors, he is the fruit of the efforts they tirelessly pour into their students. To us students, he is the epitome of the kind of professionals we all hope to become. But all in attendance here at the BES 2023, he is a once-in-a-lifetime luminary here to enlighten us about the topic, selling technology to business. I would like to invite our venerated Professor Subhash Srinivasan, who heads the marketing domain, has expertise in sustainability marketing, circular economy, and B2B the sustainability marketing, sustainability, circular economy, B2B marketing, and a founding chairperson of Center of Business and Society, Center of Business Society. I would like to inform all of you about the flow of events. We have a speaker talk, which will be followed by a moderated question and answer session by our faculty moderator. Then the floor will be open for questions. Now, I would like to call Professor Pravin Srinivasan to set the context for the talk.
It's on the way.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you feeling? Looking very serious. Can you simply smile and relax a bit? Just forget that this is a sort of formal occasion, but let's look at it as more of a discussion with a very illustrious student of ours and one of the leaders in our country. The reason I said that I set the context is because when I got this invite from the organizing team, I realized that the world is small and history repeats itself. So I was telling Pravin that I didn't tell you the full story, but 25 years back, I was working for an IT company in India, selling Cisco products. I was selling HP, I was selling Dell, Lenovo was not formed, Compaq. But the one that I remember most is Cisco, and I think why. Interesting story. Out of all those company brands we sold, Cisco was the only company which told us you need to know what you are selling. And that was new for us because my company was selling, creating software for 20, 30 years in the country. But the brand new to the market, coming and telling that you need to actually pass a test. So this was one of the certification in vogue. And I'm so proud to say that one of those people who did the early Cisco Self certification in 1999, and we did it with a lot of difficulty. So one day the Cisco National Head of Sales tells us that all you guys who are selling Cisco products, you need to get a test, and if you can pass the test, you can sell our product. And we said, okay, we will do that. So a group of around 15, 20 sales engineers, led by the networking expert of the time, one of the leading networking gurus of the time, we went to a testing center. The idea was very new 20 years back. Today you have got the TCS, IM type of places. We went to a place called Solving in Calcutta, and we thought we'll finish in half an hour and go for a coffee or a beer, whichever was nearby. As it happened, that we kept on taking the test and failed it. I will not tell you finally how we passed it, but very similar to the way you pass your quiz or test. But that really created a respect in my mind about this brand, which was reinforced over the time. The way Cisco, John Chambers is he still seen? No, yeah. So John Chambers, the way he built it, and my B2B students in the room will tell how many times we have discussed Cisco's approach to its marketing channels, how it really tries to enhance their capacity in form of relationship building rather than just providing money or social recognition. So that's part A of the context. Part 2, what Pravin is going to talk about is technology selling. And I would really like you to sort of sit back and listen to him, because technology selling is very different from product selling. All of you are using a cell phone. How many of you have got a fingerprint locking system? You are using actively, show of hands. So technology selling happens when the company that creates that fingerprint locking goes to a brand like Samsung and Apple and say, can we put this system in the next generation of phones? So try to understand it's not that they're selling a product, but they're selling the technology that changes the end product. So I'm looking forward, how you're doing it, Pravin. And last point is, the only reason you should listen to Pravin is that you won't find it in ChatGPT. So you can put in as many prompts, but no Cisco guy is going to tell how they sell or the insights that he has with him over 25 years of IT selling. So I'll just tell when the flight takes off, sit back, relax, enjoy the talk.
great to be here. I spent the last 2 hours in the campus, lots of nostalgia, great time, and a couple of professors, so it's been wonderful. So first, thank you so much for having me here and speaking to me for the next 25 minutes or so. I'll just give you a brief overview of what I want to speak about. And then we'll have a discussion and then obviously Q&A. So the idea here is that, like Sir said, there is stuff that we've done over the last 20 years, which is knowledge in the head. I will be showing some slides which are some of the frameworks, which you'll probably see. But the more important part is what's going to come out of my head. So forgive me if I, it's not necessarily in a straight line. There's lots of stuff that will come out. And I'm looking forward to Q&A piece as well. So we want to hear from your side. I must say that I'm feeling very underdressed right now. Thank God I got a jacket with all of your suits. But they are the IT industry, so I am professor, of course, is the order out. But we are the IT industry, so we pride ourselves on being semi-casual. So that's the good thing about being the IT industry. You don't have to wear the suit all the time at least. But anyways, this is what we'll be talking about for the next 25 minutes or so. What is the B2B sales process? I'm sure if you've taken this class, you've seen the frameworks, for instance. I'll just have a quick refresher and something that's very unique to the IT industry that we sell. When you're doing FMCG, for instance, and you're talking to a set of distributors, the technology piece takes a backseat, right? Because you're actually selling the product more like what was said. But in the IT industry, if you can't sell technology, then we have a problem, because that's what we are in the business of. We're selling the technology, selling the vision, selling the strategy around that. The product always comes later. If you see in the history of the tech industry, theoretically, the best products have not necessarily won the day. It's always the companies that are able to sell the story around the tech, that have the vision, that have the strategy, that sees how this product will start to get utilized and built into other people's businesses. Those are the companies that have that, not necessarily the best product. So it's great to talk about the product, but more critically, you have to understand what the technology behind is, and even more critically, how that technology is going to help your customers. So when the exam reached out to me and said, you're talking about navigating tech trends and how you sell that, I renamed it to actually helping customers navigate it, because that's how you become successful as a salesperson. You don't get success because you sell the product. You get success because your customers are successful. And that's the best way to get your products into. So let's talk about that, some of the trends, which I'm sure you know a lot more than me. But I outline some of them that take the industry. And as salespeople, what we need to do is keep up to date with what's going on. That's very important in the world. So again, every company has its own sales process. There are at least 1 million books out there, and maybe 500,000 frameworks. Obviously, being 25 years out of college, I had to go back and do some research and figure out what are the actual sales processes, and I found the 6 stage, 7 stage, 8 stage, 9 stage. It doesn't really matter. I just took one snapshot or something and put it here. The number of stages really don't matter. What matters is the actual operations that go into it. So the first one that you see is the prospecting piece. So when you are in a sales job, there are two broad sets of prospecting that we do. There are what's called breadth and then depth, right? So when you start talking about breadth, typically it is you as a salesperson trying to reach more than you as a salesperson are assigned to a set of customers. But sometimes called farming versus hunting, depth versus breadth. There are various terms, but these are two broad areas. So your prospecting depends on how you are actually looking at your market. If you're going to depth, then you have to figure out what the current application landscape is in that customer. What are the technologies they're using? Who are the people in that particular customer? What's the official hierarchy? What's the unofficial hierarchy? What are their interests? What interests them within the company, outside the company? That's your prospecting. Prospecting is not necessarily looking at which company. B2B sales has finding relationships at its core. It's a company selling to a company, but ultimately it's a person selling to a person. So prospecting is almost 30 to 40% of your time is going to be prospecting. If you do that well, then the next piece comes in, which is qualification. I have a separate slide on that actually, a process of qualification, because It is something that very few courses will teach you. Qualification comes out of, there are processes, there are absolute frameworks, but qualification is really important. Because every salesperson has only a finite amount of time. Every company has only a finite amount of bandwidth. If you're running after the wrong customers, you're wasting your time. Right? And in this, we call it sometimes science products. There will be customers who will say, wow, this technology looks good. Let's do something about it. Let's do a POC, a proof of concept. Let's build a MVP, a minimum viable product. At the end of it, you realize you don't have the budget for it, or it's not a priority for them. And that means your qualification is not being done correctly. So you wasted time, you wasted effort, you're not getting any revenue out of it. And for a salesperson, not getting revenue out of effort is the cardinal sin, right? Because as salespeople, in Delhi, we jokingly refer to salespeople as coin-operated machines, right? We run after the money, we run after the revenue, because your compensation is going to be based on revenue. So it's very critical that you're able to actually qualify these accounts, which means you have to do your research. And that is one of the critical things that are changing now. When you're talking about the traditional static way of selling IT versus now with all of these tech trends. Research becomes absolutely critical. It doesn't matter if you're an account manager, which is sometimes called relationship management, which is what you're doing is actually getting a relationship going with your customer. And then you have a pre-sales person who's a technical account manager who's supposed to do all of the technical stuff. But again, even as a front-end relationship manager, if you don't understand what your product does, and if you don't understand how that technology is going to help your customer, you have a problem. Because nobody listens to you after the first conversation. So you do the research and then make the pitch. Right? And this pitch nowadays is no longer a presentation. Because most customers don't have the time or the bandwidth to listen to presentations anymore. Most pitches today are show me what you can do, or even more, do that in my environment. So you're selling me software, fantastic. You can make a 25 slide pitch, brilliant. I am not interested. Can you take your software, put it in my environment, spend 2 weeks doing that, and show me the results? Because if you're going to show me the results, I know it works. And I'm done. I do your pitch. That's where you want to move to. And what's helped all of that is cloud, because everything is running on the cloud. I don't really need a hardware box, I don't have to install anything running on the cloud, I can get it done. But that means that you have to do the research about the customer upfront. Because you simply can't take a piece of software and put it in and hope for the best. It doesn't work. You have to know what use cases you're going after. You have to know what is the customer's priority. You have to know where the customer is willing to spend their money on. And the POC or proof of concept you do has to be linked to that. That's the research that you have to do. So they're all linked. And there's something called objection handling, which more and more is becoming irrelevant. Because at the end of all of this, if they still have objections, that means you've probably not done the previous steps properly. So ideally, objection handling should not be there at all, but of course it's not. Because when an objection comes in, objection typically is your product can't do this because I've seen the competitor product do this, and then you have to spin it around saying that why that was not a hindrance to your use case, or if it is that something that's coming, or if it's not, it's not. Right? But then what else are the positives about what you can give that will kind of negate what happens? But finally, sometimes there are objections which you just cannot handle, and so you basically walk out of it. It always happens. The idea is to reduce that as much as possible. Now, this is the difference between B2B and B2C sales, right? So we're pointing out, right? First, B2B sales values are much bigger, and two, it's never an emotional decision. However, having said all of that, it's still relationship based. When you walk into a shop, you've seen that and you've read about it, at the counter you will find impulse buys, right? Chocolates typically. That's an emotional purchase. So B2B is never like that. However, you'll be surprised that a lot of times finding companies don't buy from companies, people buy from people. So there is an emotional component to all of this, right? Also, when you go and buy a phone, will you ever think about buying a phone that was released 3 years ago? Ever? Absolutely not. You want the latest. You want the latest. Even though you read somewhere that iPhone 15 heats up when it charges, you still go buy an iPhone 15, correct? You not go buy an iPhone 13 or a 12. Why? Because that's a consumer behavior. You want the latest, you want the greatest. No enterprise in the right mind will buy something that's off the press. None. Nobody will buy something that's off the press. They will wait, they will test it, they will see how others have done, and only then they will buy it. It doesn't matter if it's 2-year-old, it doesn't matter if it's 3-year-old, that's the way it's going to happen. This is the qualification methodology called MEDIC, which a lot of our customers use, which we use internally in Cisco as well, right? And that's the full form of it. It's metrics, economic buyer. I am reading it because sometimes I tend to forget. Decision process, criteria, pain, and champion. Why do we do all of this? Because unless you know the answers to all of this, do not ever proceed with the sales cycle. There are two reasons for this. One is it could be a waste of your time. Two, even worse, it could be a waste of the customer's time. What's the problem with the second one? Your time as a salesperson is okay because you go back to that customer a little later. The problem with the second one, if you waste the customer's time, you don't get a second chance. You cannot go back to that customer ever again. So you have to qualify these customers very seriously based on this. And this is what we use. We figure out what are the metrics, which is the business metrics. And that's sometimes the downside of technology selling. We've got a lot of technical folks. We've got a lot of folks who will very quickly get down into what the product can do, how the IT stack works, what's the communication protocol, and how it works with customers. Excellent. But if you don't show the customer the economic metrics of that, then you're done. Similarly, a lot of times you go and sell to the CIO in the organization. Very easy to do. The CIO runs the infrastructure and they're responsible for the infrastructure. A lot of times they're not the buyer. They're just not buying. They don't have what they want. Now, finding out how they buy is not. So then you have to figure out other people are. You have to figure out who's talking to who has power here. That's the economic buy. But unless we do all of this, a lot of times we probably will end up wasting both our time and the customer's time, which is a cardinal sin. Now, let me talk about some of the shifts that are happening, and I'll come back to this slide. Because the way we are doing the sales process has changed, sometimes marginally, sometimes significantly. But I'll just talk about 4 big paradigm shifts that we have seen in the last 8, 9, 10 years and such. And like I was mentioning to somebody, there are 2 kinds of shifts we see. One is absolute change overnight. ChatGPT is a great example, right? Nobody is believing, you probably don't remember this, but ChatGPT 3.0. Everybody knows when it was released for public preview. How recently? Yes. 22. November 22. It's not even been 1 year. It's not even been 1 year since we had generative AI become part of the conversation. And now everything is about Gen AI. Right? That's a massive shift. It's changing the way we're doing stuff, no doubt. But then there are other shifts, like cloud. Cloud has been happening for 15 years. Probably don't even hear it, but it's a fundamental shift between B2B business. So there are 2 kinds of it, but let's talk about both. The first is cloud. Right? Now, very simply, and I know you've heard multiple versions of this, but very simply, a lot of enterprises say, when I'm running my applications and my infrastructure and my digital stuff, I don't want to come in underneath it. I want to spend my time running what I'm good at. So when Netflix runs its application, what's Netflix good at? Netflix is not good at building servers and networking. Netflix is good at building content. Netflix is good at building an app which forces you to say next and keep seeing the next one and the next one. It forces you to consume. That's what they are good at. So what do they do? They say everything else, I'm outsourcing it to somebody else and just giving it out and pushing it out. And that's the fundamental idea of the cloud. Right? I mean, you read the story, right? Amazon basically created the market because they built so much of infrastructure for their customer sales. They realized that was used 1 month a year. So the next 11 months, they had to rent it out from somebody else. And that's why this is the market leader in terms of computer because they invented the market. But that's the idea of public. But a lot of customers are not necessarily go to public. You've got B2B, you've got Azure, which is Microsoft, you've got AWS, which is Amazon, and you have GCP, which is from Google. You also have smaller players. IBM has their own cloud, for instance. Then you've got what are called SaaS clouds. Like for example, nobody heard of it, but Cisco has its own cloud. What does Cisco do with that cloud? It delivers its own applications on it. I know you're probably using Teams, but you've heard of WebEx. That's delivered on the Cisco Security delivered on the security cloud. So there are these 2 different kinds of public clouds. But a lot of customers don't want to use public clouds. Examples: banks, public sector. Why? Because they have regulatory issues and they still have concerns about PI. Personally, they don't want to go to AWS, they don't want to go to GCP. They want to build their own clouds, but they want the advantage of what an Azure or an AWS offers, which is I don't have to spend time, money, and people maintaining the infrastructure. So they build what's called a private cloud. And then you have this version of hybrid cloud, which is in between. Which means I have my own infrastructure, I use public cloud, and I'm doing both together. That's a very complex environment actually. It's not as simple as it sounds. Highly complex to run it, but that's what a lot of customers are doing. Now, what is the advantages of this? When a customer moves to a cloud, they can then spend a lot more time building what is relevant to their business, which is the application. The example I gave of Netflix, for instance. Or if you take Tata Motors runs SAP. Their teams spend time figuring out how the SAP can be more relevant to the users. Not whether I have 10 servers and my Lenovo server is not good, so I'll go buy a Dell server. That's just business they don't want to get into. That's where they go cloud. So that's the biggest benefit. But what's the biggest downside? And this, not too many people will tell you, is that if you don't use the cloud properly, especially the public cloud, you are going to be spending a whole lot more money than you're spending today. If you just take infrastructure that's built for your traditional data center and you call Microsoft or AWS and say, I just want to move this onto your cloud, if you think you're going to get the benefits out of that, the answer is no. You'll probably end up spending double the amount of money you're spending today. Because these are fundamentally different ways of working. It's like when Netflix used to ship DVDs home, this is now streaming. It is that different. So if Netflix continues to build movies that are meant for DVDs and they start to stream it, they'll be dead. They have changed the way they build the content. That's exactly what our enterprises have to do. When they move into the cloud, they need to change the way they do that. And that's where as salespeople we help. That's where as salespeople had so many conversations with my customers say, okay, you want to move to the cloud. Excellent. What are you doing to make it happen? It's not just give a purchase order and then move everything. No, you'll come back on premise. You'll come and you'll call me in 6 months and Thursday. Because you invest a lot of money and you can't see the result. So there are very specific attributes to public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. Each one has its own pros and cons. And none of them are perfect. This is an industry that's still mature. After 15 years, it's still mature. But what a customer needs to do is figure out what works for them and then go into it. So that's going to be attention. 2, data. Everything is about data. Everything is about data. I mean, again, going back to the Netflix example, the reason why you are hooked to Netflix is because their suggestions to you are scarily accurate, right? If you're using Google Maps, you see how good that is. What's happening there? It's the data that they are collecting from behavior, analyzing it, and providing insights that hook you onto their platform. Now, if you think that Tata Motors doesn't use the data, that's pretty wrong. They have a huge amount of data coming. Where does that data come from? Come from their users, from the customers. It comes from the internet users. It comes from the market. They have a huge source of data. So what are they doing about it? They are taking that data together and creating insights. Which means that when you go to buy a car, the person who is reading you knows a lot more about you or kind of demographic you are from, and hence they make a much more tailored prediction. That's data entry. Every customer you know is doing data. The bank apps, if you're using SBI, you know what ICICI Bank, the amount of data they're getting from all the customers is massive. What they're doing with it, they're able to actually figure out what your behavior is, and then they're able to suggest products to you that makes sense, both to you and to them. So data is underlying. Now why this is? Because it's not changing the customers. Our customers think about marketing, about sales, about everything customers do. And this has also great correlation to the previous, which is secure. Because when you're collecting large amounts of data, you just can't do it with your servers on-prem. You need huge amounts of compute power, absolutely humongous amounts of compute power. To do that, the only people who can give you that amount of computing power is the cloud, is Azure, is AWS, is GCP. So a lot of customers now have moved data alone to the cloud because that's what makes sense for them. How do you do that? Again, it's simple design and design. This is something you're so familiar with, right? Generative AI. And what's changed in the last 12 months since OpenAI came into the picture is this stuff called foundational models. What is a model on AI? Model is just various lines of code. So think about it this way, right? Think about it as a multi-layered decision tree. Multi-layered. And in this case, the layer happens to be 175 billion layers. But this is exactly how it works. You put in a question, and the first this is the training process. If the first layer guesses correctly, it goes to the next layer. If that also guesses correctly, it goes to the third layer. So each time it guesses correctly, it adds a weight to the answer, so that it knows that this answer is what needs to come in. If it's wrong, then the weight goes down. That's training. So what did OpenAI do? They built this massive model. They scraped data from the internet, whatever is publicly available, scraped it up and kept giving it as training to this model. Just keep training and training. It got better and better and better. To the stage now where it can pretty much give you the answer that you're used to in ChatGPT. It's natural English, right? It gives carefully good answers. It can generate poems. It can generate jokes. The thing that you probably don't see is it can generate code. If you got an army of developers sitting and coding in C++, by the way, your ChatGPT can generate code. Go to Bing, ask it, generate a program to do this in C++. It will generate the code. Ask it to generate an image. It will generate an image. GPT-4, which is coming out, can generate videos. GPT-4, you give it a video, it will tell you the story. Right? And you're getting to the stage where you give it a story and generate a video. Now that's really active. How is it changing your customer's business? That's a really piece to understand. It is changing everything. Today, if you have a Teams meeting and you have something called Microsoft Copilot for Teams, it gives you the entire action items from that 1 hour meeting and who has to do what, because it's ChatGPT. That's simple as that. So you don't have a need for somebody to take down notes anymore. You don't have somebody to track down action items. There are multiple things to do. Right now somebody is doing it. This can do it for you. It's changed the way people do stuff. Similarly, a lot of coding is becoming automatic. So this is one of those shifts that's making a massive change. Your customers need to know how to use it in their own processes. Because every time a customer can't go to ChatGPT on a browser and figure out what to do, right? They have to integrate these models into their own environments, into their own SAP, into their own cloud, and change the way they do the process itself. Today, if you're doing a certain process with A, B, C, D, with AI coming in, maybe 3 steps are not even required. Maybe half the number of people are not required. Maybe there's an absolutely better way of doing this rather than the traditional way of doing it. Right? All of this is what's happening with AI, and it's a fundamental shift. It's a fundamental shift in what you're learning as well. And you'll see by the time you pass out, it will make a big difference in the way you actually operate when you come into the corporate world. Then this is this entire thing about consumerization of the enterprise. Right? It's a little abstract, but it has a huge difference in the way our customers, our enterprises, think about digital applications. What does this mean? It means that there is no difference between the experience as a user that you get from using an app on your mobile phone like Facebook or Netflix to going into the enterprise and using the front end to SAP. In the past, and thankfully you've not seen that, in the past if you had a front end to SAP, so you know that to enter something and pull out the data, you have to get training, and the training is typically a month. Stuff used to go wrong. Lots of stuff is not intuitive. You will wonder why is this button here, or why is this doing this in a data? Why? Because the way enterprise used to think is very different from the way consumers think. Enterprise is functional, no aesthetics, absolutely functional. What can be done, and who decides those functions? It is some developer sitting out of some country that is not even there. So SAP's interfaces were developed all in Germany, for instance. A lot of Cisco software was developed in the US, and there was just some solid software engineers sitting and developing that. So it turned out to be extremely non-intuitive. It required training, half the time it used to fail, pain. What is now happening is our enterprises have realized that there is an internal application. Why can't we get as easy to use as Netflix or Facebook? Right? Intuitive thought process, trust me, it's not that easy. Even today, you go into a large enterprise, you will find half the apps are an absolute royal pain to use because it's been developed that way. It's been developed by the wrong set of people. Nobody, while developing an app, calls in an end user and says, how would you like to use this? By the way, that's last. It's called user acceptance testing, by which companies spend crores of rupees and even the user says this is crap. Sorry, you're going to roll it out anyway because we spend that much money on it. Right? What's happening now is reverse. So there's something called customer digital experience management. One thing you learn very quickly in IT industry is we love our TLS. 3-letter acronyms, right? So lots of acronyms will be there. The latest one is CM or DEM, Digital Experience Management, which means that from end to end, from the time you take up your mobile phone or your laptop to the time on the back end is running on some cloud, Azure, AWS or whatever it is, you are able to track the entire process and figure out what's happening, how is it happening, is it going well, it's not going well. So if you log into Myntra and you're on the, you selected two products and you put it on the cart and you're trying to check out the cart and the transaction fails, right? Somebody in Myntra actually knows, okay, Pravin is trying to check out both of this, it's failed. Why has it failed? Because his local service provider is linked it now. Which means you can then call that person and say, sorry sir, it's not the Myntra problem, but just hold on, try again after 10 minutes, you should get it. Very different from a traditional class where you are trying something doesn't work, you're saying Myntra doesn't work, you can go to, Amazon. And now the same thing is happening with the enterprise as well. So if your customer calls and says my SAP screen is not working, somebody tracks this whole thing and figures out what's wrong. So that's the consumerization of the enterprise. So if you go into enterprises now and you see new apps that are coming out, they build like consumer apps. They build so that you as an end user have the same consumer experience. And that's a very, very different way of thinking. So I just thought there are many more shifts that are happening. I thought these are the four big shifts that are possible in there. So what does it mean now to the same sales process, right? So same design, same diagram, you see one extra arrow. So what happens now is that when you're prospecting, you have to be very, very clear on what you're trying to do with that prospect. You just can't, there's no machine gun approach works anymore. You have to decide, do I want my customers in the FSI domain, financial services industry? Do I want my customers who are using these kind of apps? Do I want my customers who are in this area? You have to be very specific to it. Why is that? Because the next day, when you actually make the pitch to the customer, you cannot do discovery during the pitch. When I joined Wipro in '99 as a salesperson, there was a spin methodology which we were all taught, which is the capability of asking questions and deriving from those questions the business requirements of a customer. It sounds absolutely logical, it doesn't work with it. Because the customer does not have the time to answer your questions. You sit down with the customer and say, can I know what the business priorities are that are being told? Right? You have to go in there to be prepared. And not just in general, yes, you are in the FSI industry, so I think these are your challenges. Does not work. You are HDFC Bank. I know you are having these challenges. And hence I have a solution for you. That is the level you have to go into. Which means your research is on an absolutely different level altogether. The good news is that you have lots of tools to help you in that. But the bad news is you have to put in the hard work. And sometimes it is multiple meetings before you finally meet the stakeholder. Yes, I've got a meeting with the CIO. Before that, I'll have 10 different meetings with other people, badge them, get all of the information, put it all together. So when I'm meeting with the CIO, I've got the first finding to tell that person, look, this is your specific challenge. This is how I can solve it for you. Right? So that is the difference that's happening now. Now combine this with the shifts, and then you see the complexity. Because now the customer is confused. Because there are 10 different people talking to him on 5 different technologies. His MD has told him, you know what, I read about this chat GPT, why are we using it within HDFC Bank? So he's under that pressure. So there's a lot of confusion out there, and you have to make it clear. You can't add to that confusion. You have to create clarity. So it is very complex when you're doing the prospecting, and that has changed a lot in the last 10 years. So you spend 90% of your time preparing for the meeting, 10% actually in the meeting. And as seasoned professionals, it used to be the other way around. It's just, oh, there's a meeting, is it? Okay, when we're sitting in the car, we're figuring out, okay, what do we do about this? That's not working. We get thrown out of the meeting. You spend time, prepare, and go back again. And then what does the line mean? That line that's actually closing the loop. And this is so critical nowadays, a lot of people don't get it. Your sale does not end when you get the purchase order. Ever. Sale does not end when you get the purchase order. Now this, the consumer salespeople realize long time back. And they sell you a phone, by the way. And Apple sells you a phone. It doesn't end there. It wants you to keep coming back. It wants you to buy more services from it, right? It wants you to buy more devices from it. It's all working together. That is exactly what's happening in enterprises. When you get the purchase order, your sales kind of starts again. So this is entire concept of customer success that is now coming to a lot of software companies specifically. What does that mean? If a customer buys the software from you, your job is not done. In fact, in a lot of cases, your job is just starting. Because the customer does not adopt the software, does not adopt it in the right way, does not do what it's supposed to do. licenses anymore. So what is a subscription? Every 1 year or 3 years, your customer has a chance to grow your or buy something else. So it's a very logical cycle, right? They bought it from you, you haven't deployed it for them. When the time comes, thank you very much. That's the line. So when you close a deal, you start prospecting all over again. And forget software. There is a subscription economy or what's called the consumption economy. When you are selling public cloud, for instance, the idea is you have to constantly increase the consumption. You have to run very fast to stay in the same place. So your sale, there is no end point to the sale. It's not like a purchase order and done, thank you very much. It's a moving target. So you're constantly engaged with the customer. You're constantly engaged with the customer. So yes, customer says, hey, congrats, Pravin, I like your product, I'm going to place the purchase order. Let's talk. I said, absolutely. Next morning, I'm sitting there and say, okay, now that you've got the licenses, how will you deploy it? Who's going to deploy it first? Which is your team that they want? What are the use cases you're doing? How are we going to get this done? What are your time frames? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? How can you take the 6 months and make it 3 months? And that's a very, very different way of selling. Because then you can't say, thank you very much and go on to the next one. It doesn't work. You're constantly engaged. But these things still remain the same. Your behavior, your skill, and your knowledge. So your behavior has to be around disruption now. Because if the technology is disrupting, your behavior with your customer also has to be the same. There is this challenger framework. Again, just search about it here. One of the things it says is that you have to create what's called constructive tension with your customer. Do not agree. The tendency you all have is you have the customer and the salesperson, I will agree with whatever it is. No. Disagree. Ask the tough questions. Create that tension. Ask them, okay, you think you're doing this, but have you considered that by not doing this, this is the amount of revenue you're using? Ask those questions. Create that constructive tension. Disrupt the customer's behavior. Only then you can be successful. Only then the customer realizes. Because if you agree with whatever they say, after something the customer is not going to see value in you. Because you're just another person in my team. But they're actually expecting you to push back and say, no, what you're doing is wrong. You should be doing it differently. Get that position. Your skills have to constantly evolve. Like I said, today your customer is not expecting you to sit down and do discovery in front of you. Customer is expecting you to give solutions, meeting number one. And sometimes the famous elevator pitch, right? When you are ground floor to the top floor. Sometimes you are only the second floor. You've got 5 seconds. Right? It's sometimes as bad as that. Now it's the messages. 2 weeks back, I was almost going to order to a competition on LinkedIn. And I had to somehow convince him to give me a meeting. Luckily I was, and he gave me a meeting next week. But now for that one single meeting, we spent a week of preparation. Absolutely full week. Because with that meeting, I know I was 5 minutes to make it happen. That's the word. So the way your skills are constantly. And finally, there is this thing about the growth mindset. It's absolutely overused in a lot of cases. But it's very different. You are so used to doing this. When something new comes up, your question is, why do I need this? Why is it different? What is different about this from what I'm already doing? Why can't I use my current skills and knowledge to do this? And that's a sure sign of becoming irrelevant. You have to question it. New technology comes in, how can I benefit from this? How can my customers benefit from this? What is this new technology about? How does it work? It's okay if you don't understand it first time. Try twice, you'll understand it second time or the third time. None of this is rocket science. It's just IT. IT has this tendency of complicating things because, hey, that's IT. But it's not rocket science, it's all completely understandable, provided you have the growth mindset to understand it. And when I was in Microsoft, this was absolutely something that was driven by the chairman and CEO across the board. He said, nobody likes an overcome. Nobody likes an overcome. You have to become a learner. Which means after 25 years in industry, you should be asking the question, this is new, I want to learn. What is this? So that when you go back to your customers, then they can see this and you're able to help them. And if you help your customers as a salesperson, you start to get successful. So ultimately, I go back to the thing, which is the only way a salesperson is successful in the IT industry is by making their customer successful, which is the case in every industry. But in the IT industry, that becomes more critical because it's a very, very dynamic industry. And I've told a lot of people in my team in the past, if you don't like this dynamism, then you should be working for the post office because that's successful. That's thank you so much.
Thanks, Pravin. I think a lot of great stuff in very short time. So, I have to process it every day. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to do that. I'm sure it was useful to some of you. So, I will start with a few points that you mentioned and a few questions I had as a ex-salesperson, as a current sales teacher, and then hand over to the students. So you talked about growth mindset, disruption, sales is a moving target. The one I like most is the consumerization of the enterprise. So my first question comes from here, that 20 years back when you sold your products, the customers were very happy if they could send an email. And many of my customers had a computer which was sort of covered in a very nice cover in the office. They just fell short of worshipping it, putting some other purpose. And today you have these very young people as your purchasers, who have Facebook, Insta, Twitter, Netflix. And when they go to the office to buy a server or a router, do you see a change in their behavior? So you can use that.
No, I've got this mic. Maybe I'll also stand. No, no comfortable stand. Yeah. No, it's a great question. In fact, the corollary to that question is that a lot of IT industries are looking at their average age of employees. Why would that be? Right? It doesn't make sense because the more experience, the better, right? It's exactly your question. Because I am almost 50, I'm walking into an office and meeting a CIO in the 30s. All of that. I don't understand when we were in Mesa and we didn't have PCs in a room. It was only 99 when the LAN cabling happened, the PCs happened. So all our interactions were less. So how do I connect with that? And that's exactly the question. Today, customers want something that works well, works easily, that's intuitive and that can be used. So the idea of we buy IT and then changing for IT has changed. IT should serve us, which actually kind of makes sense. So you'll have various kinds of examples. Example SAP, all heard of SAP, right? They are the predominant enterprise resource planning plus for enterprise, right? Massive market share. In the last 2-3 years, one of the biggest problems they've had is that they're not adapted to the cloud world. So they have built something called SAP Rise, which is their own cloud offering. So what is cloud offering in that? Traditionally, how SAP used to do is what I told you, the traditional way, right? Here are your licenses, this is what you need to do, go ahead and deploy them. Now in a cloud model, they're saying we'll run the whole thing for you. You just bring your business processes and then do that modification. We'll take care of everything else. It's a fundamental shift in what they're doing. Why are they doing that? Exactly because customers don't want to be able to spend years deploying a software. Years, I'm not joking. Even today, a full-fledged SAP deployment takes years. Then you have the other extreme. You've got these cloud native companies that are coming up, right? And these are from India, these are globally as well. Forget the consumer ones. Even from India, if you take a company like iService, for instance, or Tata, there are so many of them that are built here, grounds up on the cloud native. Their first interface is like the Google interface. When you go there, you see like two buttons. The first interface that you see from a Cisco product, your users will drive you nuts because you will not understand anything unless you become a CCIE, which was at one point of time the most difficult exam to pass in the world. In the world, right? Cisco certified internet engineer, which means you're a guru in deploying Cisco stuff. It needs you to study for 6 months. That doesn't make sense. So today, Cisco operates a company called Pravin, which has a cloud interface. So you plug in a switch, and suddenly something pops up and says, how do you want to, go ahead and deploy it? You say, okay, next, and you're done. Very different. So the needs from the customers have changed drastically, and it will continue to change. Last week, I'm talking to this customer on digital experience management and app dynamics does this, and he said, hold on, where's the entire generative AI using? Simple question, right? Now, my answer give it 6 months. You're working on it. But now the things have changed. 6 months back, if I had the same conversation with the customer, he would see this and say, wow, this is exactly what I want. Now he said, yeah, it's good, but it's generic. That's the answer to the question. If the customer's requirements are changing on a daily basis. And then for last 10 years for sure, but month on month now they're changing. Because the industry is changing, so the expectations. So you have to be able to produce products that are there, but most importantly, be able to tell the customer if it is not meeting the requirements of doing something like that simple, why not? And how to go about it. So that this is the
Thanks a lot. So, we move to the next question, but I want to quickly share another Cisco anecdote. So, one was that three large companies were trying to sell us essentially to one of the IITs. And these are known system integrators, So they wanted the best prices from Cisco so that they can communicate their price, and they have the lowest price for that. So we had this sort of informal meeting with Cisco where three large companies and Cisco sales manager were sitting across the table, and all of them were very good friends. So in this industry, we are very good friends and enemies at the same time. And all of them say that Mr. So we have been working together in so many projects. I want you to give me the lowest price for Cisco products so that I can create my position for that and win the order. And it was a very difficult situation for the Cisco person because indeed we were all very good friends. But he asked a very simple question, and I remember till now. So he said, we would like to know which one of you actually worked on that client. It's not about getting the best price, but you want to see your effort. Which of you actually met the highest designation person in the IITs? And I don't want you to explain, just give me his visiting card. And that was the aha moment across the table, because only one of those companies had the visiting card of the IIT director. So in Cisco's parlance, I don't know whether you use it, it was known as a high-touch account. So customers, they will track irrespective of whether the channel members are working on it. So connecting to that question, Pravin, is how do you handle these sort of high-touch accounts? I don't know whether you still call them that, but basically key accounts.
Yes, absolutely. So two parts, and to add to your point, absolutely valid point. The reason why all of that happened is because traditionally you don't fix a price for your product based on cost, right? This is not an MRP game, never is selling to B2B. You have to figure out what the customer is willing to pay. And what the customer is willing to pay is absolutely a function of the value you have shown the customer. And there are different ways of showing value. Cost reduction, risk mitigation, revenue increase, profitability increase. If you show all of that and say, if I can show you a 5% increase in profit, you're going to pay me 0.1% of that. He'll be willing to pay 0.2% if he believes that. Or she believes that, right? So that's the value. So the reason why this is the case in a lot of companies is because they want to find out, have you shown that value? And you cannot show value to an entry-level data operator. That business value is shown to the toppers, the CEO, the head. And so it goes down from there, and that's how the pricing happens. But to your point also, large amount is the debt. So typically, a portfolio company like Cisco or Microsoft or Oracle has many products to sell, and every large customer is multiple buying centers. So you typically start off with the CIO, which is the infrastructure, the person who runs all of it, but then you move what's called land and expand, which means then start meeting the marketing folks, you meet the finance folks, you meet the sales folks, you meet multiple people in the same customer, because each one has a different use case. Take the example of generative AI, the CIO may have a use case of just integrating it into their help desk app so that if you have a problem, it's easy to log it. Simple. Marketing, you have a very different use case of generating flyers for the customers. Finance has a very different use case, which is generating P&L at the end of every quarter. So each one has a different use case, which means you have to go and sell to each one as if they are a new customer. So that's the idea of going to depth. So large accounts, high-touch accounts typically will have one person handling it, sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 people handling only one account. Because that's how you go in, you meet multiple people. When I joined Cisco in 2005, I was handling two of the largest ITS accounts. And at one point of time, I did a count, and one of them I had almost 45 different cards. Because we met 45 different people across. It's that big, and that's not really enough. I'm sure there are lots of places we haven't touched. But yes, so the idea of larger accounts is that go deep, go sell more, you meet more economic buyers, and hence you're able to land it.
Thank you. So my last question before I pass it on to the students, I have many, but maybe we'll take it offline, is a typical cards of technology selling, or sometimes we call it the first mover disadvantage, is that when you are a lead technology company, you have invented something for the first time in the world, you spend a lot of time in a market like India to build the awareness, educate the customers, create use cases, get a tender, or give a proposal, only to find that there is a sort of stealth follower waiting for you to finish and jumping with a 40% lower price. How do you handle it?
No, it's a fantastic question, right? Because I mean, we have short memories, and most people think, for example, the Apple iPhone was the first touchscreen phone, right? No.
Now, I'll give you, in the Cisco's history, for example, we had this company called Huawei from China, entered India, and you would be surprised if you see their product brochure. So, for example, Cisco had a router called X1234. The Huawei brochure would have the same router with the same picture, H1234. So that the customer don't even make the effort to understand which product of Huawei corresponds to which Cisco product. That was the level of copying.
Very interesting anecdote. One of our customers, they finally bought Huawei. They were installing a router, and the Cisco operating system coincidentally is called iOS, Internet Operating System, not the Apple. And they were installing the Huawei router, and the port scrolled up. And at the bottom is for technical assistance, please contact Cisco Tech, which is a toll-free number for Cisco Tech. No, so it's a great question, and the way to handle that is that when you are meeting the customer and getting the RFP, for instance, right? Again, there is an RFP for this. You don't win the RFP when the customer gives you the purchase order. You actually win the RFP 6 months before. So when the customer comes out with the RFP, the work is already done by the way. Which means you work with that customer to ensure that what comes out in that RFP suits you. So that is one way of ensuring that a competitor at lower cost to talk to you can do it. Because go tell the customer, look, this is what I do. This is a benefit you're saying. This is a value I can show you. Now somebody will come and show you a product that will do the same. But that's just a product. There's nothing else around it. Right? I'm coming to you with a solution, with an offering, with a business value. Today, a lot of companies like us have business value assessment teams, consultants, ex-McKinsey guys who are sitting there, who work with the customer and say, for this solution, this is how much money you save. Now, you can't get that from a smaller fly-by-night operator because they don't care, they're selling the product. So, the idea here is in that entire process, you have to create those entry barriers, if I put it that way, so that you and the customer both win. Because trust me, the customer doesn't want to get stuck with the lower price product because they have to run that product for 3 years. You're done. You lost the deal. Sad. You go back home and go to sleep. Customer has to live with that subpar product for 3 years, and that is a horrible state to be. So, customer wants to work with you. You have to ensure that you're working with the customer to ensure that certain things are not happening. It's difficult, not a precise art. Goes both ways, but lot of times that.
Yeah, thank you. So over to the students. If you have a question, please volunteers and pass on the mic.
Still have the energy without lunch.
Hello sir, I'm Aditya from BA Batch of 24. So my question stems from the 3 points which we had in the discussion with regards to the STIL model which is right now redundant. Also there is a disruption that's going on with regards to technology, and there is a closing loop. So my question is, in today's time when we have technology that is coming up frequently and our company might be catching up to that and might be in process of development, how do we retain our customers? What is the process of retaining them and keeping them with us for the long haul?
again, fantastic question. So a lot of times, as a salesperson, product development is not in your control, right? Somebody is doing something and you're hoping that you have the right product that comes in. But a lot of times, you will have a product that is not up to scratch in terms of features, for instance, or whatever it is. So there are two approaches to this. One is to create the trust with the customer, that if you have something that's coming in the roadmap, why they should invest in your roadmap. So if the customer is going to place a purchase order today, they're not placing it for the product you have today, correct? You're actually telling the customer, look, this is what I have today, but 6 months down the line, this is what I'm coming up with. And you have to convince them that you are trustworthy enough to deliver on what you are selling them today. Right? That's one approach. The other approach is to work with the customer to actually show them what the baseline is. Now, again, in Microsoft, for a lot of customers, we still have this discussion I mentioned it, right? A lot of them come back and say, my MD is saying I have to use ChatGPT today, tell me what to do. And my discussion with them is, why do you need it? Why do you need something like that? You probably don't even need it. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time. Is it going to give you a better business result than something that's already there in the market for the last 3 years? If the answer to that question is no, then why would you invest in something like that rather than saving money and doing something like this? So again, both approaches need not necessarily work all the time, right? Sometimes you just have to gracefully bow and say, yes, there is a better product out there, there is a better solution out there, and kind of swallow it and move on. But a lot of times, if you can prove to the customer that as a company, you are able to provide a roadmap and deliver on that roadmap, because that's the change in, that's the upside of an idea. Because customer requirements are changing, your products also are changing at the same rate. Right? Nobody sells the same product for more than 6 months. So both sides happen. If you can convince the customer that that's ultimately. Otherwise, you have to look at the customer's value, change the baseline to what the customer is wanting to do, and see if you can still provide business value to what you have. And then maybe a combination of both.
Hello sir, I am Surya Prakash Datta from the batch of 2025. Actually, it was an intriguing topic for me what you researched, but certainly I know that Cisco is a major pioneer in cloud computing, networking, and also cyber security focus. So currently, how generative AI is going on with the trends, the data models, the huge resources that are currently going on, and more innovations are going on in this. What is your view that data breach policy, data breach, and how the data is actually framed and it is not misused in the future? So what are your thoughts that it can be done like this?
Okay. Yeah, if I got your question, you're asking two things. One is, how is the generative AI changing security itself? And two, how you can ensure the data which is used by generative AI, for instance, is also secure.
So basically, currently, I have also seen many editors and many anonymous hackers. They actually break generative AI with their prompts, the algorithm they are having.
Yeah.
So, is it possible that in the future this doesn't happen? So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, okay, that's a great question actually. So, typically, you have to understand how the generative AI model works. There are two kinds of generative AI models that are there. One is the one that, for example, is available from OpenAI, right? Which is, and they make both, in fact, they tell you very clearly, if you submit data to OpenAI and use it, it is good for training model. You use to train, right? So, if you take sensitive data and give it to the OpenAI model and expect your data to be safe, then that's an expectation mismatch. So what a lot of companies are doing is that they're turning to private services that do the same thing. For example, Microsoft Azure runs its own version of OpenAI model that is completely closed. So if you give data to that model, it does not use it to train. That's the commitment that it gives to you. Or what some companies are doing is that they are building their own models. I don't need such a massive OpenAI model. Look, OpenAI, the GPT 4.0 has not released how many billion parameters it has. 3.5 is 175 billion. 4, they're not releasing how many billion times. So it's a massive model. It can do the dollar ratio 10 times over. You may not need it. So what a lot of companies are saying, let me build my own model. So there are open source models. Hugging Face is a good company, for example. Meta open sourced its own model. So you can take those models and you can then train it on your own data, and it's completely in your walled garden. So there's no question of it. Then you have traditional cybersecurity that can do it. So both these approaches are coming in. What's also getting very significant as a phenomenon is that by 2025, there is no more publicly available data to train the next model. Whatever is available on the internet has already been used. Right? So last time the data or 10 years ago, 12 years data has already been used. So there is no more publicly available data to train the next model. So what OpenAI is doing, they're not making a bigger model because it doesn't make sense. They don't have data to train it. What they're doing is making smaller models that are more effective at solving certain problems, which can be used by that company. So that is the way to look at it. So, but having said that, even when you build your own models, cyber security is a very critical thing. The guardrails that you make, the enterprise guardrails that you do are so critical. One of the things generative AI is doing now for security itself is trying to solve the problem of user making user proof. Almost all security hacks are because sometimes in the data chain, some user something happens. It's always something with it. What AI can do is reduce that data a lot. Because a lot of times as humans you're trying to put in commands, this can be cascading. So that's the, but the idea is this is how you kind of ensure that the data is not.
Yeah, this is it.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Muskan from batch of BM 2025. Sir, I have a question about the slide where you mentioned that sales start after the purchase order. There I computed that sales is all about generating and then regenerating the revenue from the same customers and even enlarging the customer scale. And then the other moment you mentioned about the dynamic culture that we have in the tech industry. So my question is, which part of the work is more difficult? The handling the dynamism internally or managing the high dynamic, high paced dynamism with the customers?
They're both difficult. But I think if you have to ask me to choose between the two, I would companies it doesn't matter. The only reason for that is you are not dealing with an entity that's not kind of a customer. And that customer has their own motivation, they have their own agenda, they have their own all of that. And we may not fully understand, we may not fully know. So you can still come up with a lot of surprises. Lots of times we walk in expecting a purchase order only to be told, sorry, we've gone with somebody else. Why? Because we don't know what happened in the back. Sometimes something happens in the back. So it's very difficult that way. So yeah, the other one is you more learning to keep up with the change, whereas here is an entity that's not in control. So that's probably why it's one.
Okay, I think, do we have one more question? Yeah, good.
Sam Satya from the batch 2025. Sometimes what we see is like companies do create a demand for a product, like which is actually not really needed. Like I completely agree that the market is dynamic and you need to constantly change according to the like environment. But like sometimes in the case of when Google created its glasses, it pushed it, but ultimately there was no demand for it, so advertisement failed. What should be the strategy? Whether we should see what the customer really wants, or what we need to create our own innovations and then try to push that to the customer, so that will make required amount of changes for them.
It really is. Actually, Steve Jobs used to say that sometimes the customer doesn't know what he wants. So if I listen to my customer too much, I'll just make better versions of the existing product. In a way of looking at what he did, but that is going to say. So a lot of times, if you are very close to the customer, they understand the challenges that they're making evolutionary changes. But sometimes a very different way of doing things requires a different way of thinking altogether. And yes, like any industry, out of the 10 products that you release, there will be failures. Right? Some companies have a much better way of doing it. Now, again, there are different approaches to this. A company like Google spends a lot of time building stuff, right? Apple spends billions of dollars on R&D. Cisco also spend billions of dollars on R&D, but they have slightly different approach. What they do is they acquire companies, take the technology, take the people, integrate it, and provide a better offering. Two approaches, build or buy, right? But net, the first point about this whole thing is, what is that challenge you're trying to solve? Now, sometimes if you know the challenge, the customer tells you the challenge, at best you're getting an evolutionary change. But to get revolutionary change, nobody told OpenAI 10 years ago that I want an interface where I can write a question in natural language and you should give me something and I'll integrate it with my Salesforce. Nobody did it, right? But that's a revolutionary kind of change. So both approaches are valid. But your point about pushing it is a different volume altogether. I mean, that's marketing and sales. But ultimately, if you're not meeting a challenge that the customer needs to solve, how good your product is, or if it's too early in the game, not going to work, right? So it's a mixture, and that's why there are two different approaches, and not all Apple products have been successful as well, because they tend to do a very different kind of product. Sometimes that also great. So every company goes through the same cycle. Most successful companies have both. They have the evolutionary changes, and some from time to time they produce brand changes.
Okay, this is the last question.
Hi sir, my name is Satyadeep Das and I am from the batch of 22-24. So my question is about account-based marketing. So in that context, what are the strategies that you use to identify and target and engage with key accounts effectively? And you are also talking about breadth and depth in prospecting. So if I want to go for depth, I want to cross-sell and upsell my product. So what are the strategies for that or approaches that you use? Maybe you can bundle some products together and say that it can have a better impact on your bottom line. So how do you go about it?
Kind of linked the two questions. So account-based marketing actually is figuring out the new economic buyers within the same org. And there are multiple strategies to do that, right? For example, in the real world, you have agencies that actually have databases about your customer hierarchy, all of that. Sometimes you won't buy it. You reach out on tools like LinkedIn, for instance. LinkedIn Sales Aggregator. It's a fantastic tool to figure out within the customer that you're targeting, who are the 10 other people that you should be targeting. And if you go through the LinkedIn profiles, you'll pretty much figure out what they're interested in. Right? So half your research is there, because when you go into the meeting, you already know what that person is interested in. You read his LinkedIn or her LinkedIn profile, and so you're going into the targeting phase. So account-based marketing typically looks at expanding the base, which means opening doors with new economic buyers, which means reaching out to all of this. Sometimes we do events or certain companies. So we reinforce this campus, we do a Cisco day, we have lots of people come in and we talk about multiple things, so that different people can say, okay, I have a need for this or I have a requirement for this. So it's all of that, right? To your other point, bundling software both is a pro and con. Right? A company that does it very well is Microsoft, is in suites. So if you want product A, B, and C, they'll sell you D and F because it's cheaper as a bundle. And then after you bought it, what I showed you, they go back and say, no, you bought D and F, why are you using it? Just go ahead, deploy it. And because then you go somebody else's product. So it works sometimes. And that reflects badly on your other product as well. So it's a mixture. You have to be careful while doing it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. The better way always we found is to go back to business value and show that person this is why you need to buy this. Otherwise you are losing out on business revenue or so much profitability, etc., etc. And that is a much better way of going to planning. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will, bring the session to a close, but we are grateful for your time and insights, Pravin. I'm sure it was good learning for the crowd, but also a source of inspiration. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of motivation and wisdom. I am sure our students gain invaluable insights from your thoughts and experiences on navigating the unknown. We thank Ashish sir for his constant support to the BES team and making the session structured and helping us get the best out of it. Now, we from the BES team would like to request Professor Ashish to present a token of appreciation to Pravin sir for his contribution towards the summit and making it a special one. We are privileged to give a copy of the newly launched Exposed Quarterly Magazine, BES edition by Exime Alumni Committee as a token of our admiration and gratitude for our distinguished alumnus invaluable contributions. Sir, do you have any parting comments for us?
Just thank you for this. It's been great. I've learned as much as hopefully you learned something as well. So it's been awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you. And all the best.
Thank you, sir, as it was really a pleasure to have you on campus for this special event. I would like to thank the audience for keeping the session engaging and showing their enthusiasm towards the summit. We thank the room artists, the media and PR set of XIMD, and Excellence, the photography committee of XIMD. We would also like to thank our dignitaries, our professors, and our students. I would like to request the audience to stay as the dignitaries take our leave.
Looking good. Thank you. I have to send to everybody. Okay, nice pretty good program. We'll be in touch. No, really. Yeah. No, no, I already took your mind. Specific area first time जो assessment आपके पूरा है ना इसको क्या आपका जो प्रोग्राम हाँ Hi, I am Hi, I'm Pravin. I am country sales leader for Cisco App Dynamics.